Hello and welcome to the Retire Me Blueprint app. This is a brief tour of some of the highlights of the application, how you can get started with the startup wizard, how you can have a look at the Monte Carlo simulation result, make some tweaks to your plan, and then download a report. Just in summary, the Retire Me app is a very comprehensive and very detailed and very sophisticated planning tool. We will only touch a few things, and we will have other videos that go into a lot more detail on other topics later. But this is just to get you familiarized with how the app works and what it looks like. So when you start up, you may come through directly into a wizard, or you may come to a blank screen like this, which is the entry point. And from here, you can create a plan. Now, because there's so many different permutations of people and situations, we've got a template selector, or you can browse through a variety of templates that describe certain situations, whether people are Kiwi couples, married, unmarried, you own your home, you don't own your home, you're young, and you have your life ahead of you. You can start with a completely blank plan and build it up from scratch, or you can use a quick little template selector, which I'll do. And I want to go with somebody looking to retire in the next 5 to 10 years. It's my partner and I, and we have a home with a mortgage. So it will pick the best template, and you can go straight to it. And it comes pre-filled with some basic information to show you the type of information that's relevant. So there's a number of steps in building your plan. There's a bit of a summary, but primarily you start off with a plan name. I'm going to call it my first plan. My name, and I'll keep it as Alex. I will say that I was born on the 7th of July 1966, and I want my plan to run to 90. I'm wanting to retire at, well, let's not make it 65, let's make it 60. I'm not already retired, and I want my partner to be included in the plan. We will retire together at the same time. That's her birth date. She's not retired yet, but obviously you can create a plan where one or more of you are retired and different things happen, different superannuation figures kick in, and so on. So we are what is classified as a working household. The next step basically wants to know about your income. So you can go and look at your bank account and say, well, fortnightly after tax, I see this amount of money. My partner fortnightly sees that amount, say, or weekly or annually, whatever is required before after tax to get to your figure. Do you have a Kiwi saver? What type of return do you expect? I'm going to put 5.5. We do actually link them to Stats NZ later, you can see. But I'm just going to say what 85k in my Kiwi saver, a 3.3% contribution from me, my employer. Sam has somewhat less. I'm also going to adjust the return down a little bit. So you've got your starting position. You don't have to have a Kiwi saver, obviously. Do you have any cash in the bank? Well, let's say we got $5,000 in the bank, and let's say we got $2,500 in savings and $2,000 in the bank. We have an investment portfolio, $80,000. I'll make it $50,000. Maybe it's just a savings account. Well, we would never get that, so let's call it a call account. If you don't have an actual fund that's being managed. I'm a homeowner, and that's the value of our home, and it includes a mortgage, and then just some information about your mortgage. What is your mortgage balance today? What is the interest rate you're paying? Well, I want to drop it down to 5% because it's good now. And then you could decide the length of your mortgage. So I pay fortnightly, and I don't know how long it's to go, but I know that I'm paying $3,100, say, so I've only got 2.5 years to go. Well, not me, but this couple. Let's maybe make that a little bit more realistic. Okay, and they have got, say, monthly 6 years to go. So they've actually got quite a low mortgage. All right. Then this is the interesting part is do you know how much you're spending every month? So you can either say, well, I know my monthly expenses, and I can add a number, which is what my monthly expenses are, or I can just say, look, I spend everything. So calculate my income after PAYE, take off my mortgage, and whatever's left is what my expenses are. Or you can say, well, actually, I know how much deficit or surplus I have. I might have $500 a month or a week left over. And then, well, what do you want to do with that 500? Are you going to put it into your investment, into KiwiSaver? Just keep it in your bank account. You can redirect those funds. I'm just going to go with I spend everything, right? And then this is an important thing, is your monthly retirement expense calculator. And we've got a whole section on how to calculate this. But basically what it's saying is, well, I reckon my overall expenses are going to be 70% of my normal expenses, and which is $7,000 a month. Or I can put in a specific amount, which we'll talk about later. But let's just go on what that, I think it was about $7,000, right? And then what about my expense plan? And we'll go into all of this in a lot more detail. Are your expenses going to decline naturally? Are they going to incline? Is there a lifestyle profile where you're active or frugal? What about the smile, where your expenses go up towards the end through your health strategy? You can even pick manual, where you can literally put in the values of the cost over time that you feel apply to you. I was going to go on a gradual decline, and that my health strategy is self-funded. You can do a means-tested RCS funding strategy, or go private insurance. I'm just going to say it's self-funded for now to keep it simple. And then the last sort of step prior to the checklist is what assumptions we've made. And you'll see this little NZ badge. It's from NZ Stat. It brings in the inflation rate, the standard investment return, what the volatility ratios are. We'll talk about that more when we get to Monte Carlo. What your property growth should be. It's probably a bit less than that. Let's make it 2%. How many simulations we will do. And then the final thing is, what is my withdrawal strategy? Because it's going to project all your funds into the future. And then when you retire, you're going to start drawing down on your savings, and do you withdraw from your lowest returning investments first, from your highest risk first, or do you manually set where your drawings are coming from? Do you start with KiwiSaver? Do you start with your investment fund? Do you start by selling your house and drawing down for that? So this is, again, a very brief wizard. Gives you a bit of a summary. And then, because that's all it does, it doesn't take into account all of the other complications, which we will do after the wizard. But you may want to remind yourself that there are things you want to do. For example, you may want to sell your house and downsize, or you may want to rent out a property, or you want to pay off your mortgage early because you're expecting an inheritance, or there are other things that you may want to add as to make your plan a bit more sophisticated. I'm just going to say just a bit of a reminder to downsize the house. Okay. Again, this is a modeling tool. It's not a financial advice tool. Take that into account. Always take whatever you decide is your situation and take it to your financial planner. So we create the plan. And it just is a reminder that there are more sophisticated things you can add to your plan. And what it does is it produces a highlight. And it says, well, there's 0% chance of success, so that's bad news straight away. Your net worth is going to be good, but you have a shortfall quite quickly. And it'll even give you some observations why the plan failed, and cash runs out early, and so on. And here is your Monte Carlo, which is a very miserable looking Monte Carlo. Basically, it's got the retirement date. You very quickly fall down to nothing. So that is a shocking result from a cash flow perspective. But from a net worth perspective, because you've got your house and you don't sell your house, your net worth continues to grow slowly. And the Monte Carlo gives you sort of averages of what's likely to happen. Basically what it does is it runs through thousands of different permutations of all the interest rate returns of all of the different instruments that you have, and what the performance might be and what may happen. And it plots that all out in a very big probability chart, which is what these two are. This is not a great result. And now you can go on and say, well, let me look at some scenarios. What scenarios can I delay my retirement? Can I change some of my expenses? Can I make a more optimistic growth rate on my investments? There's a variety of things that you can do, but this is not a great forecast. So from here, look at the forecast and you can see what's actually happening in this 1 year. If you go and have a look at this year, I'll just open up the table and maximize it. You can see exactly the breakdown of what's happening in life. So the superannuation that kicks in month by month, withdrawals from KiwiSaver, right? So super is paying out, but you're withdrawing a lot every month to from your KiwiSaver to actually survive from 2031. So you're burning down all of your cash very, very, very quickly, and you basically run out of cash in a very short space of time. So that's not great. How can we solve for it? Well, probably not easy to solve. We under scenarios, we've got a solutions or a goal seeker. And what we want is we want to say, look, let's be conservative. I want $1 left at age 90. And I'm willing to be flexible on retirement age, my expenses, etc. And it'll go off and go through a whole bunch of combinations looking for a solution to your problem. And it's basically saying, well, we can't meet your goal. There's nothing you can do that will make you survive. So clearly, you have to do something with your house. You have to sell that house, right? And if you go back to your plan, you will see that was something that we said that we would do. And so let's do that, right? So we looked at the highlights, we looked at the forecast, we're now looking at the plan. This is actually what it constructed from the wizard. So what it's got is under household, it's got the 2 people and our retirement dates. You can go and look at each one of us. It's then got our finances, and our finances are your assets, your liabilities, your income, and your expenditure. So from an assets perspective, we've got some cash in the bank, we've got this call account savings, we've got the 2 KiwiSavers, which we can't draw from yet, and we've got the family home. On the liabilities side, we've just got the mortgage, right? That's all we've got. So there's a whole bunch of capital tied up there. From an income and an expenses perspective, we've still got my wages. Sorry, not mine. Alex's wages and Sam's wages are still coming through. The superannuation values will kick in much later. And from our expenses perspective, our pre-retirement living costs are $117,000 a year, which means we're actually running at a deficit. So even now we are expending more than we earn. So that's the very first thing to start taking a look at, which the plan can help you with. You can now go and add other types of income, right? If you've forgotten something, you can add other expenses as well. So maybe that overseas trip in 5 years' time, maybe a car purchase. You can put them into the future and see what that does to your plan. Once your plan's healthy, that is. And you can add assets and liabilities as well. Now, let's look at the expense plan. The expense plan says that we're going to spend $85,000. Now, I'm not going to go into the expense tracker. It's another tutorial, but if we had to drop our expenses to say $60,000, right, you will see that there's a gradual increase through inflation, but I can look at the net present value. It's basically flat, and then my health costs kick in. So this should substantially improve the outlook, but there are other things to do. Here are events that we can add. We're going to add an event, and we're going to say we're going to sell the house, all right? And we're going to sell the house in 2030, we think. Okay. Where it is, sell asset. Okay. We are going to sell the family home. We're going to sell it at the market value based on the percentage increase. And we're going to assume there's a 3% selling cost, and it's going to pay off that loan if there's anything left. All right. And the proceeds we will put into our call account. Now, you could go and open up an investment account with higher returns and then direct this into the investment account. But at the moment, all we've got in our assets list is a call account. So we'll save that, and you'll see now it's got that house sale. We will also have to buy a house, right? Or we could rent. But let's add a house purchase. So we downsize. Okay. And we're going to downsize at the same time, so in 2030 as well. It is buy an asset. We are going to buy a family home. We could buy a different home, but this time we're going to spend, I don't know, $650,000 for a small retirement home. And we will be taking it out of the call account, and there's no mortgage per se. So we'll save that event. So we've got some events happening in our life. What does this do to our story? Um, just before we go look at the results, just something else. Other than our assumptions, we do have tax considerations. So your PI tax rate and your PIR, and remember super is taxable at a modular rate. And there's a few things we can talk about in more detail here. But now we go back to our highlight, and you can see the situation has improved drastically. Okay, so what's happening now is our situation means we run out of cash on average. The deterministic is the middle line, but from an average perspective in our early 80s. And at that point, we will have nothing but that house that we've got left over. So what this modeling does is it shows us that we have sold that house and we've got the new house, which has grown slightly over time. We may have to sell again in our 90s and rent. Okay, we'll go into another housing plan in order for us to push the success out into later in life. So let's see if it can solve this problem for us in a better way. We'll go back to our scenarios and look for solutions. We are again trying to, well, in this case, have $10,000 left at 90. And now we do have solutions. Okay, so based on our decision to sell, we can delay retirement by 1 year and get a part-time job, right, for 5 years at $2,000 a month, and our investment return needs to be more optimistic. Now, those are quite difficult to achieve. Over here, we're saying, well, we're going to cut our expenses by 5%. We're going to be more optimistic and get more aggressive returns on our investments, and we're going to do a part-time job for a couple of years. Or delay by 1.5 years, or do this, or do this. So it's giving you all sorts of options for you to try and solve this problem. You can even look harder for other permutations, which we won't do right now. And then you can say, well, I'm going to pick this one, delay by 4 years. You can go and see what it does, what the impact is from basically a net worth and from your cash flow perspective, and it pushes you right out to age 90 when the funds run out, which is a much better situation. What you can do now, in the blueprint, you actually can't make a comparative plan. That's a premium feature, but you can apply them to your current plan. Okay, and it'll copy all those values and those changes into your plan. And now when you look at your Monte Carlo simulation result, you can see your situation looks much better. You still only have a 50-50% chance of actually having that occur. You may run out of funds in mid-70s. So it's still a tricky situation, right, for this couple. And to be fair, this is the Kiwi problem, is most Kiwis, even with savings and with some runway ahead, have a real difficult time ahead. And that's why a planning tool like this is so important, so you can make decisions early. Anyway, to bring this sort of to an end, what you can now do is there's various other things, but we're just going to download a report which tells us the situation. It's quite comprehensive. There it is. It creates a PDF, and here's the PDF. And it's sort of, there's a risk here. It basically runs through everything that your financial planner needs to know, including the charts and graphs, your cash flow trajectory, your drawdowns, where your income versus expenses, your liquidity buffers, the composition of your expenses and where your contributions are coming from, and then actually all of the numbers as well as the Monte Carlo methodology underneath it. So it's a fairly comprehensive report, which you need to take to your financial planner as a starting point for them to use for their modeling with you. But it gives you a much more informed position before you seek financial advice. Okay, so there is your whirlwind tour of the blueprint functionality that is available in the RetireMe application. There's a lot more, and you can have a lot of fun looking at all the different permutations and options and planning the rest of your life. So good luck.